Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. Do all your ideas work? That is, do they hold water? Do they stand the test of time? Can your ideas hold up to scrutiny, objection, and the laws of physics? Can they endure real-world application, challenge the status quo, and still prove reliable? If you've answered yes to all the above, congratulations. You've earned it. If not, welcome to the club, the Reality Club. Like me, you're back in front of the proverbial drawing board, refining, reworking, and questioning everything to make your ideas more and more aligned with reality until they finally work. We know that the best ideas, the ideas that actually work, are born of pain and forged in the tumult of real life struggles and triumphs because, as it turns out, real life gives you valuable feedback on just how stupid and worthless your ideas are sometimes. Or maybe that's just your wife squashing your ego by saying, you know, honey, that podcast of yours is a really dumb idea. But if every idea you've ever had has flourished, you just might be living in a place where your ideas do not have to work to survive. And Thomas Sowell has an excellent quote about that. We'll get into it. We also talk Panama, pipelines, Panawasi, and if you think you have an idea about what you can do with your property, maybe you want to add a basement suite or a backyard suite or a garden suite, or maybe you want to sever a piece off, maybe start a cricket farm or something, well, let's confront you with reality. The cricket farm might not be the best idea, but what you're going to do is go to goodstewards.ca/discover. You're going to click the little green button there and we'll go to a page, and then you're going to book a free 30-minute expert consultation and get all your ideas squashed. Get all your questions answered. We will confront you with the reality of what you can and cannot do on your property and get you clear answers so you can pursue an idea that actually works, add dwelling units to your property and avoid mistakes, and finally start generating some income from it. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but it is valuable for listening, amusement purposes, and now let's confront reality again, shall we?
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. I'm your host, Mark, and I'm here with your other host, Brent.
I'm another host, eh?
Well, should I just say co-host?
I'm just the guy that laughs at you.
No, there's lots of people that laugh at me.
Very true. You just can't hear them, so
yeah. It's not in real time. Anyways, welcome to another episode, 105, I think. And we've got some more current events and some takeaways. I mean, it's hard not to do current events right now with everything that's going on in the States, right? It is like just a breakneck pace of events, and they all affect Canada.
Mix for good fodder for the show, I guess. So.
That's right. If you can't be a good fodder, at least have some good fodder on your show. So, okay, let's dive into some of this stuff, and it will be interesting to see what, if there's a parallel movement in Canada once, if ever, our government changes over, right? If the Liberals do lose, despite Mark Carney parachuting
on
in
for dear life, and parachuting in is a good one.
Yeah, I mean okay. I mean, I got him further down, but this guy's ridiculous. Like, come on. He's,
You're reorganizing the notes already. Come on, Mark.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is how we go. No, he's
starting at the bottom.
Painting himself, that's a very good place to start. Painting himself as the outsider when he's not. He's been advising the government for years. He's presumably...
Doesn't he need the definition of an insider, though?
Yes.
Like, the elite.
Yeah, one of the Laurentian elites.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he's been advising. He's the architect of the carbon tax, and never mind that he's got 3 passports. Right? Remember when Andrew Scheer was leader of the Conservatives, and everybody just ripped him apart for having dual citizenship, and Carney's got
just in case
triple citizenship.
If I mess this country up, I can. So I can mess this country up and one more and still.
Well, yeah. So I mean, his fans would say, no, he's got experience at the Bank of England. His detractors would say, yeah, he went over and ruined England too. And he's going to come back and try and ruin Canada for the second time. So that depends on which side of the spectrum you're on, I guess. But his latest announcement was they're going to cut the carbon tax. But they're going to have a new carbon tax. And like, if you just, I should have brought the clip, but
it sounds like a win-win, Mark.
Oh yeah. It's a win-win-win for all 3 countries.
Yeah.
No, he's saying
we got to tax the big polluters, no?
Well, sure. If look, Canada. I mean, another study just came out, and Canada is a net.
I was going to say we
contributor.
tax the big polluters, but if we take the trees into account,
Yeah.
we should give subsidies for every tree that's in Canada to the people.
Exactly. We are a net benefit in terms of CO2 production, which, like, even that's nonsense. But anyways, he's like, no, we got to hit the big polluters, and that will be good for business, and it'll be good for companies, and blah blah blah. I'm like, hold on, you're gonna get rid of the consumer carbon tax, but you're gonna do a bigger tax.
Yeah, on specific corporations
and that's somehow better for business. Like, explain to me how more tax is going to be better for.
Well, and where did
Canadians.
I guess the narrative to the average person is, don't tax me, but tax the big corporations. That makes sense, but I guess it resonates well with the average person. But at the end of the day, where do you think that tax, the tax on the big corporations, is going to end up, right?
Yeah, who pays for those? The big corporations aren't just we got a piggy bank for this.
Look at this tax. I guess our profit's going down.
Yeah, I guess I won't take a salary this year. Come on. And you would, so he's not a dumb guy.
Worst
whatever
case,
you want
he
to say.
could go to a different country, right?
Yeah. He's not a dumb guy, but he's playing politics. And economically, this doesn't make sense. But and I don't know if
I've heard you say that a government official is not a dumb guy. So out loud.
I'm trying to think of examples that I can refute you, but I can't. Just a sad case of the sad state of our government. Anyways, let's get back to DOGE, my favorite government agency in the state. So they have essentially ended USAID, which is the United States Agency for International Development. And so, you can go online and see the list of grants that they've been giving, the type of aid that goes out there, right? We talked about condoms for Gaza a couple episodes ago.
But this is U.S. money. U.S. taxpayer money?
I mean, is it taxpayer money? Can you consider it taxpayer money if the taxes haven't been paid yet? It was just borrowed
what about
money.
Inflation?
What about it?
It's the hidden tax that they pay without knowing it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And we'll go back to our example last time where we talked about, we talked about borrowing money to help others, right?
Yeah.
It's a bad idea, right? And that's essentially what the U.S. government has been doing. They're massive debt, and they're sending all this money all over the place. So on one level, you can look at it and say,
are they actually helping others, though? Because they say they're borrowing to help others, that's one thing. But if they're borrowing and they're not actually helping others, that's
that's the question, right? So they have all these programs that are of dubious origin, and we won't get into them, but you can go online and look at them and find them out. We're going to get into the Canadian version, and we will look at some examples.
They're highly interesting.
Highly. But that's level one, right? Ridiculous money being spent on transgender opera in Peru. Okay, that's really, but the question is that money actually going to these causes?
Yeah.
Right? Where's the money going? When you're sending money to Mozambique or to, any sort of third world country, where does the money actually go? Right? And you see these pictures of the memes, right? And it's here's a doctor's house that makes $175,000 a year. And it's a modest, nice home somewhere in the States. And then here's a congressman who makes $175,000 a year. Here's his home, and it's like a sprawling complex, right? And there's a point.
It's a small village.
You have politicians get into politics, and I don't want to name any names, but we have a prime minister whose net worth has increased substantially, right?
Yeah.
Ridiculously during the time he's been in office. And how does that happen, right? You're managing the interests of a country, or, in the case of the U.S., a state or whatever. How does your net worth increase so rapidly? And even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's the, what is she? Member of the squad, they call it. Yeah. Anyway, she's a young Democratic congresswoman in the States, and she's kind of admitting that there is a lot of grift, because she's like, look, I am not even worth $1 million. I don't own stocks. I don't have real estate, all this stuff, right?
I feel like these political officials have just got Philippians 2 verse 4 wrong. Let each of you look not only to the interests of others, but also to their own interests.
Oh, yeah.
They're reading their Bible backwards or upside down or something. I don't know.
So whatever you think of Trump and Elon Musk, like these guys they're closer to that to that verse than anywhere we've been for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the question is like U.S. aid, is it just a way to funnel money back to government officials and to the managerial class, right? Probably. So,
but also to the foreign gangs and like the corrupt leaders in other countries, right?
Exactly. So
kind of propping them up. And that doesn't necessarily make their countries any better. So because you mentioned if they stop this program, you'd expect to see some backlash, right? From the citizens of all these countries. Like, we've been providing aid to this and this place for so long, now it's stopping. Well, outrage. Is that what we're seeing?
No, there is zero. I've seen
just quietly,
a video of someone from Uganda saying like, yeah, it's their money. They can do what they want with it. And if they're going to like pause and see what happens, maybe we got to figure out like why we've been getting all this aid money for so many years and we're no better off.
Yeah.
Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And so it's just a testament to the fact that even in these countries, the people know that the money stays at the top and some of it trickles down to actual aid initiatives. But
so what's happening in Canada on the same front? So U.S. aid is gone.
Okay, before we get there, I just want to say this some of these audits it's kind of funny because Elon Musk has like these 6 wonderkins, right? These six of his employees, they're young like programmer dudes, like just these autistic nerds. They've been described. I don't know if they are, but that's the thing, right? And they're just like working around the clock, like they're in shifts. So I can just imagine they're like, they got Twinkies and Red Bull and they're just like at the keyboard going, right? And they're just uncovering all this stuff and finding all this waste, and people are losing their minds, right? Like, this is not legal, and how can this isn't what the government, and it's like, they're auditing all these extra governmental agencies.
They're not even governmental agencies.
Yeah, they're not. So who are you? Like, it's the same thing. But when the shoe's on the other foot, you don't like it. And anyway, I won't say it, but the one guy has a interesting online nickname, and CNN had to put it like across their, the Chiron, the little news ticker at the bottom.
The thing that feeds.
Yeah. You look that up if you want to laugh, right?
Okay.
And somebody had to say it on air. It was pretty funny. This guy's online nickname. Anyways,
it's not appropriate for the show, Mark.
No, it's not. And on that note, I will say, once in a while when we have a guest, some words slip through, and so we do our best to catch those and cut them out. Well, we do our best to vet our guests and be like, hey.
Yeah.
But once in a while they slip through, so I apologize for that. But we do listen to the shows after, and we will edit them out. So if you listen to it on the first day it's released, it may be different 2 days after. Anyways, that's a little side note. So all these audits, I think, are like, it's ramping up its practice for when they audit the Department of Defense.
Right.
Because that's
so
really
those 6
the big
programmer
one.
dudes are going to have a fun time with that.
Oh yeah. They're getting their methods correct. And so the defense spending in the United States as of 2023 was 13% of GDP, or $820 billion. And so the only thing that's bigger now is payments on the debt. Yeah.
Turns out if you spend 13% of your GDP on defense, in a couple of years, you're going to have to spend more than that on your debts to finance it.
Yeah. I mean, the entitlements are also going to be very close. They're growing, so they will eclipse that as well. But anyways, so operation and maintenance is 39% of that budget. Military personnel is 22%. And then you got procurement, research and development, and other, which is, what is that? 30, 32, 39, almost 40% of the budget is like, I think it's fat that could be trimmed, right? They probably don't want to cut down too much on actual operations and salaries of personnel, but still 40% of $820 billion is like $350 billion or something.
Yeah.
That can be trimmed, not cut down, because obviously they got to buy stuff. But like, this is just going to be a heyday for these guys. It's going to be ridiculous what they find, because it's pretty well known that, if you have
a military contract.
Well, yeah, if you've got this mug here, right, this might cost $20 or I don't know, $40 with inflation. But if you slap medical on it,
yeah,
now it's $100. If you slap military on it, that's $1,000.
Yeah,
right. It's the same mug.
Yeah.
So
you might have to go through a little bit more testing, but
yeah, can it take a bullet? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that will be very interesting to see what happens, and I think it's going to open up opportunities for a lot of smaller defense contractors.
So
to
what you're
get
suggesting
contracts.
is that they're looking into this, and it might result in decentralization.
Well, again, so that's my big question about the Trump administration, right? Are they going to decentralize? Are they going to give up federal power?
Yeah, because you're talking
That's
about the left is centralizing, like a big centralizing force, right?
Yeah.
And then your common criticism is that the pendulum swings too far to the right, and we end up with centralized power, but in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, ideologically, I think I'm fine with being on the right.
Yeah.
But not with that centralized power, with decentralized. So, we will see what...
smaller companies, more of them.
Yeah.
It sounds like, smaller farms, more of them.
We
gotta get the slaughterhouse guy on here.
Yeah,
Smaller meat slaughtering houses, more of them.
We will. Okay, let me just read a quote from Thomas Sowell. Sowell or Sowell? I don't know. I should know this. But anyways, he is a black intellectual in the States, still alive. He's getting up there. But he's a great read if you enjoy this sort of thing. So he says, the most fundamental fact about the ideas of the political left is that they do not work. Therefore, we should not be surprised to find the left concentrated in institutions where ideas do not have to work in order to survive. It's like,
let that sink in.
Yeah, and like, what? Really? So if you think about it, where is the concentration of leftism or wokeism, whatever you want to call it, right? Universities, government,
where
bureaucracy.
Everything is theoretical and not practical. No real world results or no real world consequences.
Yeah. Well, no, there are real world consequences.
They're long
of
term
government
in the future, and we can kind of kick the can.
Well, because we can print money, we're not. You don't have to worry about it.
We're gonna start a big can kicking competition. Like I want to do host the two stewards can kicking competition, and just bring down Trump and Biden
it's like road bowling in Ireland. You ever seen that?
No,
they just
the cheese race in Gloucester.
Well, yeah, that'd be good too.
Yeah.
No, they just they're bowling down the road. They're whipping balls, see how far they can get them. I mean, I'm sure it's... Yeah, I apologize
kind of like that, but
to road bowlers in Ireland, because I'm sure I've oversimplified it, but I think it's just an excuse to get out and throw stuff and then go to the pub.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a little bit off our purview here.
We almost go off track as far as the government kicks the can down the road. Let's just say that.
Exactly.
They project their consequences out, but anyways.
Eventually there won't be a road.
Yeah. The consequence to this, though, is that we won't have any listeners the further. You guys keep kicking the punchline down. We never say anything on the show.
Okay, so let's get to the Canadian equivalent of USAID, Global Affairs Canada. So they've already got been criticized for their alcohol budget, for example, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Wow. Part of that is to support Canadian wine and alcohol producers, which I think that's just a really great excuse. Come on, guys, really? But anyways, we have a list of some of the projects that Global Affairs has been funding. And this has been getting increased scrutiny because of what's happening in the States. And so that's why I say, what happens in the States doesn't affect Canada directly, but indirectly it does. So now people are looking at the $8 billion a year that Global Affairs Canada spends And
I mean, it's nothing compared to 820 billion.
no, but when you compare it to our budget of I mean, who knows what the budget actually is, right? Is it 40 billion? Is it 60 billion? Is it 80 billion? We don't know. But whatever the budget actually is, it's a big chunk of it. And
well, just if we were to hypothesize, what sort of things do you think Global Affairs Canada should be sending money to? And this is money that we have or we don't have that we're borrowing, or a bit of both.
I mean, again,
like what's a good initiative?
What is the deficit, right?
Yeah.
Last year it was 20 to 30 billion. We don't still really know.
Yeah.
On a 40, it was supposed to be 44 billion. We got up to probably 70 or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is completely. But anyways, let's say we run an $8 or $10 billion deficit. I mean, they've talked about reining it in, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this is all borrowed money.
Yeah,
we don't have the money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, first of all, we should just be call me a terrible person. We should just stop international aid. Like, you only send international aid if you have the money to send it.
Yeah.
Right? We do some charitable giving. But like, to a certain extent, once I run out of money, I don't give anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
well, not financially or
exactly.
Your time or your talents in other ways. But yeah, if you don't have money.
Yeah. And this is money. I mean, most of this is just funding given to
so where are the funds
third-party organizations
in Canada going? Where are they going? Let's get to that part.
But I think it's important to say that, like, a lot of this is not actual government involvement and government going out and doing something. They're giving money to third-party organizations. Some of it, Development Finance Institute Canada, blah, blah, blah. There are some government agencies. But when you look through it, okay, so there's 18 million given to Colleges and Institutes Canada. So I'm assuming that's for colleges and stuff in Canada, for this initiative called 1,000 Women. I am a woman. I exist. I participate. 18 million bucks. So, hey, not bad. $3 million to the Inter-American Development Bank, Accelerate Women Entrepreneurs in Countries of the Americas, Partnership for Economic Prosperity. You're like, well, I mean, okay, at least it's promoting business or something. $3
million to the UN Development Program for accelerating Ethiopia's response to COVID-19.
Okay, I mean, wherever you stand on COVID, like, okay, do we really care what happens I mean, we sort of care what happens in Ethiopia, but
we're not giving it to Ethiopia, we're giving it to UN.
Yeah, another one for a UN program, $4.5 million, accelerating green and climate finance in the Philippines. Oh, okay, I guess that's a good one. Accelerating women's business growth, $13.5 million.
Green and climate finance. What is, like, you get a extra program if you're in the Philippines and you're going to do some green research? Like,
so one...
how does that benefit Canada?
Well, this is the question, right? And so one criticism is of climate finance stuff is that it's nonsense and it's grift. Well, number one, that it's nonsense. And number two, that it's actually just people pocketing the money somewhere. And I mean, you could probably, I think there's a pretty good argument for that. So $1 billion.
Argument for working for the UN for a bit. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the UN. Right?
Okay.
But approximately $1 billion of the $8 billion budget of global affairs is towards climate finance. What is climate finance? Interesting. Can you finance the climate? I mean, this is the big joke of our time, right? That, if more taxes will actually reduce the temperature on Earth. Okay, $18.5 million, accessing the full range of sexual and reproductive health services in Mozambique, given to an organization called IPAS. So, and then as you go through this, you see lots of stuff about achieving reproductive rights for adolescents, $9 million.
Accessing health rights, basically abortion.
It's all abortion, right? They're pushing abortion throughout.
Accessing the full range of sexual and reproductive health services in Mozambique, 18.5 million. Did you say that already? That's just like, oh man.
Yeah.
How many people are in Mozambique?
I don't know, millions. I mean, it's not surprising. I guess, right? If you look at sort of, if you're on the conspiracy side, the globalist agenda is to reduce human population. That's not even really a conspiracy. That's just, common knowledge, right?
34.
So if you want to reduce
34 million people in Mozambique.
Oh, how many people in Canada?
And
Brent?
18 million spent on helping them achieve abortion. What?
So, I mean, you could cynically say like, oh yeah, we're just trying to limit population growth in these countries because
it's like give every single person who lives in Mozambique 500,000, assuming it's like 50% women, 50% men, then give every woman in Mozambique $1 million. I don't know. Am I reading this wrong?
No, I mean,
okay, I'm gonna have to look into.
I mean, this is what happens when you start to go through. Like,
and this is like number 10 out of 40 on this list.
Well, okay. And these are just like some stuff that somebody pulled out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, advance women's political participation in Nigeria. Great.
So basically, what you're saying here is that the U.S. is taking action on their foreign aid stuff, and Canada is being called into question by some people because of the list that you're reading off.
Yeah, there will be an equal reckoning, I think, in Canada at some point. Okay, last one. I just want to say, advancing sexual and reproductive health in Cabo Delgado, which is actually a province in Mozambique, because Mozambique was a Portuguese colony, so they actually speak pork and cheese there. Almost $19 million. And this is to the Aga Khan Foundation Canada. Now, where have we heard that name before? Well, the Aga Khan was a famous friend of Trudeau Sr. and now Trudeau Jr. He's been criticized for taking all expenses paid trips to the private island of the Aga Khan, who just passed away. And yeah, look at the amount of money going to this guy's foundation. And so, if you say, oh, well, it's a foundation, they're doing good work, like, yeah, maybe we need to look at, who is actually getting money and what their administrative costs are.
I think we need to do more than just look at it, Mark.
Someone does. But anyways, that is Global Affairs Canada. And so if they're uncovering huge amounts of grift in the United States through these development agencies, like, the same thing's happening in Canada and the rest of the developed world. It's just people funneling money into their own pockets. So, yeah, what do we do? You've got a quote from Hayek here.
Yeah, Hayek is...
not Selma Hayek.
Friedrich Hayek. I don't know how to say his name, but he says, our freedom is threatened because we are much too ready to leave the decision to the expert, or to accept too uncritically his opinion about a problem of which he knows intimately only one little aspect. So
that sums up our podcast in a nutshell.
So don't, if you want to give up your freedom, listen to our show. But yeah, basically our world is complex, right? Like you as a human being, you can't figure it all out, and relying on one expert for one thing, like...
I guess, but what have we heard recently so much? The refrain, like, trust the experts, trust the science, leave it to the experts. And like, who are the experts? Well, they're just dumb schmucks like us, right? Like,
but they're expert in one thing?
Well, yeah, they might be an expert in one thing, and then they push that to other spheres of influence. But like, common sense, right? There's lots of ways to say it, but like, you need to have common sense. And
I guess what Hayek is saying is that when you trust these people blindly without questioning and without like doing your own research or thinking about these experts' ideas, you give up your freedoms, right? You surrender your freedoms, and you're kind of under their power. So if that's the world you want to live in, then continue to blindly trust and give over that power. But that's the centralizing force that we're trying to fight against.
Yeah, like 100%. Whether it's finance, like the world of money, we talk. And I mean, this is kind of one of the goals of the podcast, I think, is to get people to sort of understand this and then to question as well, right? Even what we put out, like, question our narrative,
certainly question it. Don't believe a thing.
And your guiding light. I mean, Scripture is our guiding light, but then also,
if you're looking for a single expert,
or
governing body, governing authority, well, because what Hayek's kind of referring to is like there's this scope of knowledge out there, right? And no single entity can possess all of that knowledge and then make an informed decision about what everyone else in society should do. Right? Like oftentimes they're either like completely misguided and they don't have the broad enough perspective on everything else and all the other factors that might affect everybody. Or like you mentioned on your other quote, where they just blindly believe in their idea, but they're kind of living in this world that's void of consequences. So they've never really seen the second and third order consequences of their decisions. And yeah, with scripture, we do know that we have the full scope of knowledge, right? Like we are
as far as what we need to know.
Yeah, we are reading from the inspired word.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to be an expert, I would suggest start there.
I mean that's our guide to life, and the Bible talks about every situation that we have, whether it's new, we think it's new, like there's nothing new under the sun, right? But that reminds me of another. We don't have time to get into it now, but just some numbers on the proliferation of PhDs and masters in
Mozambique?
North America. No, North America, right? And like,
so
what
a lot
is
of PhDs in Mozambique on women's health lately. I don't know what it
Probably. Well, but yeah, exactly. We have so many PhDs and doctorates in all these ridiculous fields of study. Like, what does it actually help? And we place so much emphasis on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That goes back to what Jobst Landgren was talking about getting, if you're a young person kind of looking for practical advice on career path and that sort of thing, like go find something that's tangible, that's related to what did he say, the maths?
Yep.
Like something where
math and engineering.
It's grounded in reality. You're actually studying the laws of physics. You're studying things that aren't as theoretical, because you just think like those would be so valuable in the future, because we've kind of we haven't been doing enough of those.
Yeah.
So there's a big lack.
And that comes from a guy, I mean, who is also very interested in philosophy and other stuff as well, right? But he didn't say study that. I mean, there's room for that, but
he read
actual useful things.
He read where two roads diverged in Yellow Wood, and he decided to take both. So I don't know, like that guy is smart enough. He's probably like, yeah, that poem, Robert Frost, like he's so 20 whatever, probably 1900s, 1800s, I don't know. But yeah, he's so smart he can do both paths.
He's just got long legs.
Yeah,
he can reach both.
Yeah. And I decided to take both because I'm so smart.
Well, you do one and then you come back and you try the other one, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried astrophysics. That can't be solved by the human being. It's like, come on.
Figured this one out, went back.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have...
that brings us to point number 2 on your plan. All right.
No, Canada will not make concessions on supply management. This is coming from Mary Ng, Minister of who knows what, because Cabinet's always changing. But that's an interesting one when we're talking about tariffs, and they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to... So Trudeau has basically, got on his knees and begged Trump, like, I'm sorry, I'll do whatever you want. But in this case, they're like, no, we're not going to change the quota system. So... that's an interesting one. But yeah, Trudeau put out a tweet saying...
But you think that's a big important line item for Trump? That, like, the quota on American farm products or whatever going in?
I mean...
like, border security is his big hill to die on.
Okay, so let's...
Okay, I'll just let you do your thing.
We'll talk about... No, talk more. My brain's going a million directions at once. Okay, so just start off with this. Trudeau has basically acquiesced to Trump, right, in order to, and the tariffs have been temporarily paused. He said, okay, we're going to spend $200 million on border stuff. We're going to have choppers. I think they, ordered 2 helicopters. So I don't know if that's going to be an adequate response, but 10,000 people who either are or will be working on the border.
Seems like a pretty big border for 2 helicopters.
I hope they get more. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a steady stream of people running in over here and over here and over here. Well, we're going to have to pick two of them.
The military, I think, has offered to help, and everybody's like, no, we don't need you guys. It's like, okay, that's great. But he's also going to, Trudeau will appoint a fentanyl czar. So remember the border czar in the States? CZAR.
Is his name Sam Cooper?
Well, that's the question. We've had a few people say, like, hey, I'll be the new fentanyl czar.
In Canada.
And Sam put his hand up, actually said, hey, I'd do it.
Yeah.
I would probably do it for free. And there's
In
a couple
Canada?
other in Canada.
Yeah.
So we'll see who, like, are they actually going to get somebody serious?
That would make us famous because we've had him on our podcast.
Hey.
And he's the new fentanyl czar.
We'll see.
He's in the running anyways.
I don't know. So I think it'll be some political hack who gets appointed. Just like
it's not actually going to fix the
the
problem.
Hogue Commission. No. And so that's the concern, right? Is that we're going to do stuff and it won't be enough. But I want to look at sort of the bigger picture as well of what Trump is talking about and what he's demanding, right? So we've staved off the tariffs for now. So Trump has proved, first of all, like with Mexico and Canada, that he can threaten stuff and will do stuff. So he can push us around.
Yeah, he's proved that with the whole world, essentially.
He is in the process of doing that, right? China and Russia, he's not there yet, but he's working on that. But the point about, like, you're talking about supply management, is that going to be an issue? Like, the tariffs would have happened anyways, I think, because this is his negotiating tool. We're just dumb enough to have very obvious things that he can pick and say, like, hey, this is wrong, that's wrong, right? The amount of fentanyl that gets produced and shipped out of Canada is, like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was listening to Ted Verdict, or sorry, my phone ringing here. The Verdict with Ted Cruz is a podcast of Senator Ted Cruz in the States, and he was saying that Trump's favorite word is tariff. Like, the best word in the English language is tariff. So,
first word he spoke, tariff.
Yeah.
I'm a tariff.
China. Canada was probably the second word he spoke. Tariff, Canada. Like, okay.
But so anyways, like, we would have probably had tariffs anyways because he wants us to do some certain things. But we just presented these opportunities, right? The border, the amount of fentanyl production. They're things we should have, like, we're just stupid.
Yeah.
Because we didn't take care of them, and we should have, right? Energy is another one that we should have, and we didn't. But so we'll see. I think there will be an ever-growing list of demands from Trump to say, okay, well, you did this. Now I want you to do that. Now I want you to do this in order to not get the tariffs. And by the way, we're going to get the small tariffs anyways, right? The 2.5% or whatever.
Yeah. And to be honest, so far his demands are, like, they seem to me to be in our best interest too, like less fentanyl. But I guess your comment was that they're, you take away the fentanyl production in Canada, and that's a big hit to our GDP.
So,
well, like, you would think that it's good for Canada if you take away fentanyl trafficking, and but actually,
so
some insiders might know that it actually is a big piece of our GDP.
Well, Sam Cooper has agreed with this in principle, but Stephen Punwasi, who runs betterdwelling.ca, I got to get him on the show as well. But he did some sort of rough calculations saying that, okay, if we had the tariffs hit, it would reduce our GDP by about 6%. And so that number is debated, right? Some people have said, oh, it's 3% or whatever, but let's just go with it for now. And then he said, if we cut down on the fentanyl and then enact new laws that actually designate drug cartels as terrorist organizations, which means it has a whole bunch of implications, but essentially you're going to shut them down, right? And you would end up shutting down most money laundering in Canada as well. So he said, if we get rid of money laundering in Canada, that equals about 6% of GDP.
So
wow. So I mean, yeah.
So
either
basically,
way,
we're going to get
a
6% hit to GDP.
Yeah,
but don't we need an increase in GDP just to keep up with our deficit? Like, Tom Karad's always talks about that, right? The
Man.
increase in
we
the debt
do.
just kind of continues to grow. And
We do, but that just illustrates how staggering the problem is with money laundering in Canada for it to be that much a part of our economy. And I mean, it's not a surprise to us, or if you've been listening for a while now.
yeah.
But it's just like, wow, what an illustration, right? So anyways, yeah, let's say we do clean all this, clean that stuff up. And like, we're not going to be able to do it in short order, but at least make efforts,
Yeah.
right? There's going to be other stuff.
It'll be, we
coming
pledge
from Trump.
$20 billion to cleaning it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And not actually, or, here's our new fentanyl czar, and
Yeah.
it'll be someone who doesn't actually do anything. But I mean, that would be a big mistake, right? If we don't take Trump seriously, regardless of how ridiculous his demands are, we're not really in a position to negotiate. Right. And like you say, he's picked things that are actually good for us.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's the first step. So one of the things that I saw was possible law enforcement cooperation and possibly having U.S. law enforcement on Canadian soil. And I think that would be a huge mistake. That sets a precedent that the U.S. can operate within Canada. And like, we do that, our sovereignty is gone.
Yeah.
Right. Which brings me to,
Well, just to reflect on like the size of the U.S., I just was looking up some of this tariff stuff, and like the size of the economy in the States compared to the other economies around the world. Like the U.S. is 30 trillion.
yep.
30 trillion. Okay.
30
yeah.
trillion,
China's 20, roughly 19.
Yep.
Germany's 5. And then everything else is like, Canada's like 2, right?
Yep.
So that is a substantial difference in the size of the economy. Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to play games. Yeah, well, you don't really matter. So anyways.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit like what I think Trump's real game plan is, right? All this border drug stuff is a bit of a pretext. So he's been talking about like Greenland. Oh yeah, maybe we should take over Greenland. Hey,
Finally, someone talking about Greenland. They must feel great.
yeah, I know, like we're important.
I thought you were Iceland. Everybody gets those ones mixed up, right?
I know. Anyway, so he's talked about buying Greenland, or maybe if we can't buy it from Denmark, we'll take it over, right?
Yeah.
They've been flexing their muscles in Panama. You got the Panama Canal, which is really important for shipping. And there was sort of an announcement like, oh, they're not going to cooperate with China anymore. That's not really entirely true. They're going to reduce some cooperation once the agreement comes to an end, but the Chinese still own the ports on both sides of the Panama Canal. What else? Canada, right? They've talked about 51st state, right? So the example I gave you earlier was like, if I tell my wife, let's say I want a sports car, right? So I'll be out driving with the wife, and we'll see a nice Mustang or something, and be like, "Oh, hey, wouldn't it be hilarious if I got one of those, dear?" Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Well, you wait for the response, right? And if she doesn't,
You would never.
yeah. So maybe she
Sorry,
says
that's a
that,
bad imprint.
and I gotta,
I know your wife.
I gotta
but
lay
she's
off
not
for
like
a
that.
while. No, but maybe she's just like, "Oh, haha, yeah, that'd be funny." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Hey.
Yeah.
So I'll bring it up a couple weeks later, right?
Yeah.
Just to see what
Maybe
the
a yellow one or a red one.
And then like, if I did get one, what color do you think would be good, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of test the waters, see what the public opinion is.
Tinted windows.
V8 or V54? No,
Electric.
I'm not a car guy. Yeah,
You gotta go electric.
Yeah, electric. So, like, isn't this what Trump's doing with the whole 51st state thing? Right? Like, for Trump, he's got lots of lures in the water, and he's trying different things and seeing what works. I think this is one of those where, like, I think it's half serious, half joke or whatever.
Yeah.
Where
Some people say that. I would never say that.
exactly, it's been said that.
Yeah.
no,
Other people
but
say
where you have public sentiment where actually a lot of Canadians would be okay with being the 51st state.
Yeah.
So he's
And
put
a
it
lot,
out there.
A lot wouldn't too.
A lot wouldn't, but like way more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
I can't remember the numbers are, but it's ridiculous.
Like, what does Quebec think?
Oh, don't get started on Quebec. We'll get to them.
Okay.
They don't care as long as they get their own thing, right? But no, so now you have like Poles that are out in Canada, and this is a topic that lives among Canadians now. Should we just become American? So he's planted the seed. Now he's letting it kind of grow and germinate, and
Yeah, we got to tell him that the seed has landed on rocky soil this time. It will sprout up, but it will die quickly.
I hope so.
Well, we got a lot of Canadian Shield, so
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But what does Greenland got? They got fertile soil, or?
Well, I mean, part of it is just it's a buffer for the United States, right? And so we're thinking in terms of right, like post World War II world politics and everything that goes along with it, right? Trump's talking about tariffs. Well, U.S. used to get all their money from tariffs before
when you
income
say
tax.
all their money, what do you mean? Like all
their revenue?
Money? Yeah.
Not all, but a substantial portion, right? They didn't have an income tax before 1913, I think. So their money came from tariffs. And Trump has talked about abolishing income tax in the United States, at least federal. So, yeah, where would you get your money from then? Tariffs, right? From trade, essentially.
Yeah.
And so we only think in terms of what happened after World War II, right? World borders were set. We have the UN, like it was the League of Nations. Now it's the UN. We all get along. Borders are sacrosanct, human rights, blah, 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 right? 100 years ago, this is why I'm not in politics.
Yeah.
100 years ago, we still had...
You're just good at the filibuster.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Objection, that's not a real word. 100 years ago, we still had empires. We still had colonial imperial powers, right? Like Germany was. They had interests all over the world. The UK was. France. I mean, France still does. This was the state of the world where if it was in a country's interest to take over another country, well, they would do that. And there would be a war and, you'd fight and stuff. But it wasn't like so shocking and just out of context, right? We don't live in that world anymore. But what if Trump's going back to that context that humanity has lived in for thousands of years, right? We're not thinking on the same level as he is, I don't think. So for him to take over, you look at the context of history. For 100 years we've been this way, but for thousands of years we've been another way. So the history books in 500 years might say like the world enjoyed a brief period of mostly peace, sort of, among the major powers.
After all the death and destruction.
Yeah, and then the U.S. empire fell into decline. They reversed it. They created
Bitcoin,
the United States of North America, right? So they took over Canada and Mexico. And I could totally see that being a line in a history book.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, for context, the special forces in the United States, they have more special forces, like the highly trained, like these are the crazy guys you send in to really get stuff done. They have more of them than we have military total. So, I mean, they could just send in the Green Berets and call it a day.
Yeah, no, it would be a joke. It would be a joke.
So I think we got to take this a little more seriously.
Yeah.
Because Trump's serious. So I don't know. I mean, this all sounds a little bit like, whoa, but we got to look at different ways of thinking in different paradigms. We haven't done that. I mean, China has been essentially doing this. They haven't really taken over anybody militarily. I mean, Taiwan, we talked about that for a while. But financially, yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah, they placed a lot of financial burdens on a lot of places.
Yeah.
Their Belt and Road, putting projects in places and offering financing, exorbitant interest rates to countries that will never be able to pay.
Yeah.
And basically enslaving them, which is, I guess, a non-violent way of taking them over.
Yeah. And we've just been sitting by while they've done this. So that just gives you a little more context.
What can you do? It's China.
Well, yeah.
You could go on TikTok and do a video about it.
Well, what can you do? If you're the States, you can do something, right? It might have to be drastic now that it's gone on this long. But, I mean, this is the power play, right? It's not like Russia, like whatever. It's U.S. and China. So...
this is a power
I think
play
there's
in
a lot
the third
more
period here, Mark.
Well, again, if you've read The Fourth Turning and if you kind of agree with that view of history, like we're in the fourth turning right now, right? This is where a new society potentially is going to be shaped, or we rise from the ashes of the previous one, and which way do we go? And so it's not out of the realm of possibility that the world geopolitical order gets kind of reset.
It's like, what can average people do, Mark? Like, the world geopolitical order is falling apart and crumbling beneath your feet. Like, just wait until we become the U.S.
Well, I mean, the main thing I think is just to be aware.
Yeah.
Right. So am I saying we should all become preppers and like stockpile food and learn how to use a gun? I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
But,
well, to highlight the uncertainty, like the CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, you put this on this list too. So I can talk about this. This is a report, 2025 Housing Market Outlook.
Okay.
So they have figured out the 2025 Canadian housing market, and this document that I'm holding in my hand is all of their predictions. And so the first thing is we have no idea. It's like, Canada's economic future faces significant uncertainty. We do not identify a base case. So basically, there is no way that, I guess maybe in past reports, they kind of like draw a line in the sand. It's like, okay, this is probably what's going to happen. This is like, well, we project 3 plausible scenarios for what could or could not happen based on all these things. It's like, okay, fair.
But they still have scenario, right? Like, what is it? Low growth, medium growth, high growth.
Yeah. Which, I mean, they're not really that divergent from each other.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, but here's...
And it's interesting is they all kind of end up higher than where we are. So there's not really a scenario that like trajects down.
Well, what's higher specifically?
2.4 to 2.5.
No, but what things are higher?
GDP.
Yeah. And house prices?
That's on a different chart. This is the real GDP in trillions.
Yeah.
So a big theme throughout this report is just interest rates or borrowing costs, right? Because I can kind of go through all these things like, we've kind of had lower population growth, and that's going to kick in from 25 to 27. So that's going to affect the economy, right?
Possibly. They also say there's a case where with the U.S. cutting down on immigration, we're going to get more.
Yeah.
So, okay.
They give you both things, but it's like we should expect consumer spending per capita to increase, supported by lower borrowing costs.
Okay.
Right? So that just kind of supports, I think, what the thesis that we've kind of been developing on this show is like, we're just in a debt-based system, and people, like, the whole economy reacts to that, right? The price of debt. And the housing market is a huge chunk of Canada's economy. So that's, I guess, propped up now that we've learned 6% from money laundering. But the other part of it is low interest rates. And then, what did I say? Government spending will also likely slow down with lower population growth. It's hard to know if that's going to actually say, right? Because you said they're going to bring in immigrants from the States if they close the borders, or if they actually try and hit their targets. We'll see.
Well, I think UBI is still on the table, universal basic. They're just looking for an excuse to bring that in.
Canadian business investment, they project that to rebound over the next 2 years, or like this year. Again, lower interest rates will support this recovery.
Well, I mean, what's the business investment?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. We talked about business insolvencies and businesses shutting down, and like, what does it take to turn this all around?
I think this is framers and plumbers and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? People starting companies to support real estate growth.
Yeah. Housing market is mixed. Well, that's a good call. That sounds like something I would say. I had to highlight that one just so I made myself feel better. What else are they saying? Lower mortgage rates and changes to mortgage rules. So this is another reason why housing is going to be kind of experiencing a bit of a headwind, right? Because we've kind of seen a really slow down in the housing market, but lower mortgage rates, and I guess they have the CMHC programs. I don't know if they're just tooting their own horn here and saying like, oh, hey, we have this new program. Why don't you guys go check it out? You can get more free money or more cheap money. Yeah. If you add dwelling units to your property. But there is a lot of pent up demand, and I don't know if we're going to see that be released until 2026, 27, but
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the report goes to, is 2027, right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, after that, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair enough. You can't make, I don't know, how long can you make predictions?
Yeah, if the next year is uncertain, we'll make predictions 2 years in advance, and then people will forget about it by then because you'll have a new report. One thing that they did mention was that they suspect that the prices will grow. So prices will grow faster in 2025, reflecting recovery and renewed demand for ground-oriented homes. So I think that's as opposed to condos, right? We talked about the condo market being like this massive supply coming online, and just nobody can sell these things. Like, and then people having demand, like families, millennials having families wanting, larger homes, detached homes in neighborhoods. Right. And we've talked time and again about ground oriented housing, like just in your average subdivision in a mature neighborhood. That stuff is just it's kind of like the starter home category and the home that everyone downsizes into. So it's like and it's affordable, well, relatively affordable.
Yeah, it's the most affordable of
other than condos,
the unaffordable
right?
options.
Yeah, so.
Well, and even condos. I mean, if you look at carrying costs and stuff, condo fees, like I don't think they're any cheaper. Yeah, probably, or much cheaper.
And then there's an interesting line in here about homeowners who purchased during the pandemic are facing mortgage renewals between 2025 and 2027. This is a big wave of renewals coming, as these factors may lead them to rethink their housing needs. What that's a politically correct way of saying they're going to be forced to sell.
Well, or...
honey,
with this,
we should rethink our housing needs.
Well, with this kind of statement, that's just saying to the government and to the Bank of Canada, like, there's going to be a problem. You better lower interest rates.
Yeah. And I don't think it's so much housing needs. It's more, can we afford this? Like, honey, we don't really need this big house, do we? Well, and what you're really saying is we can't afford this big house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer is either there's going to be a huge glut of homes on the market,
lower rates.
And
then they have an interesting chart here that breaks down kind of construction starts since 2000, and the significant trend here, like just single and semi-detached housing starts are just trending way down over the last 20 years.
Yep.
25 years. Woo. So, and what's growing is apartments, right?
Yep.
So if you combine that supply trend of the last 25 years of, they're just not really building this ground-oriented housing, and then the demand for ground-oriented housing kind of, what they're projecting is everybody's kind of looking for it. What does that cause? I don't know.
I think you do know, Brent. I think it causes increased demand for ground-oriented housing is what it causes. So, I mean, single-family homes, essentially, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be unicorns.
And then they have these two scenarios. They have their low growth scenario, their high growth scenario. I thought it was funny because I highlighted both of them had the same thing in here. It's like higher tariffs temporarily raise inflation, but the central bank lowers the policy rate. And then the other one's like high growth scenario. Well, higher incomes and strong consumer confidence encourage more spending. Stronger declines in borrowing costs make homeownership more attainable. So like they're both the high and the low growth. Rates. Yeah, it's like how can you? Yeah, either way, it sounds like they're relying on interest rates going down. I don't know.
Well, the Bank of Montreal,
either that or the financing cost might be a program that government. Like it's either government subsidies like UBI, that sort of thing like you talked about, or it's, programs to CMHC like MLI Select or whatever it is, where there's available funds to people who do certain things with their house, but it's lower cost or more accessible than the average person, right? So the interest rate might not tank as much, but it might just come from other sources. But
so I mean, they're telegraphing.
Yeah, and then the other one's like
their intentions
more homes are built thanks to better financing. Stronger job and income growth combined with lower mortgage rates makes home like everything is just financing costs. So but that just circles back to debt-based system. Mark.
Yeah.
Like, can you 100%. Argue with me? I don't know.
I can if you want.
Okay.
No, Bank of Montreal released a prediction of like 6 straight interest rate cuts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that wasn't even related to the tariffs because it was a post-tariff thing. But I mean, so this is a government agency, and they're kind of telegraphing like how either it should go or how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And so that if lower interest rates don't happen through the Bank of Canada, CMHC is going to come out with more programs for like, we'll support low interest borrowing, or we've talked about this, extend amortizations, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see 40, 50, 60 years, make it more affordable for Canadians. And whether that's conservative or a liberal government, I think it'll be the same thing, because they're going to look at it and go like, wow, we don't really actually have a lot of tools to solve housing.
Yeah,
and
this
to get
goes
people
back
into
to our
homes.
kick the can competition. You know, like we can do a government version where governments around the world compete, and then we can do a consumer version where like who can get the longest mortgage, you know, with the most debt.
Add it to the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
New Olympic event.
And the U.S. is winning. I was like, Canada is winning pretty good too. I don't know.
Oh man. So, I mean, yeah, I hate to say it, but like in all of this, yeah, what can you do? Well, be aware, make some preparations, you know, have your kids learn useful things, not basket weaving or women's studies or whatever.
And continue to learn useful things yourself.
Yeah, if you're able to. I mean, if you're an old dog, you probably can't learn new tricks, but, you know, I try.
Yeah, if you're old, like just start with AI. And because if you can learn that, like Jobst Landgreep, then you can probably learn anything.
But the other thing I'm seeing for Canada anyways, I mean, if you know, we become the 51st state, I don't know. But like it's hard assets, right? And I'm seeing like low interest rate environment. What happened in the last however many years of low interest rates, right? Asset prices went through the roof, which includes real estate. So
yeah, and when you say prices, I think just kind of theoretical for people, like the price of it might go through the roof. Yeah. But the actual real value, like the real, there's like the nominal rate or price, and then the real value that's actually there. I think what you're doing when you're buying an asset, whether it's real estate or some sort of like tangible thing, or if it's like Bitcoin or gold or one of these things that has kind of a fixed supply, it's recognized as an asset. You're kind of going outside of the dollar system, and but those assets are denominated in dollars, right? Yeah. So you're not necessarily increasing your wealth, you're maintaining it, right? And relative to the dollar. So the dollars are being printed and stimulus is being sent out, universal basic income, everybody's getting money, and the price of everything goes up, including your assets. But that means that if you own an asset, well, you can exchange that for currency and you can buy kind of the same things that you are, like maybe a bit more, but the same things, right? So it's not like necessarily that you're getting, you know, filthy rich on this. It's just that you're kind of maintaining your status, right? Yeah. Which is sad, because what we're living now is a world where people have to take risks with their hard-earned money to own something other than money, like an asset, and sit on it. And kind of, you have these two classes of people, right? You have the one class that can do that and does it. And then the other class of people who over time, you'll notice, like they rely only on their income. They own no assets because they're renting. They have no kind of investments portfolio or whatever. And they're just getting railroaded by inflation.
And if you're just relying on income, like that's a pretty precarious place to be.
Yeah,
right?
I was talking to somebody the other day. It was a senior, and they make like, I think it was $1,900 a month, right? Which is okay, but that's a fixed income. So that's not gonna double. That's not gonna, you're not gonna get a raise or promotion or whatever, right? So you're getting that, and your expenses are what everyone has. Like you have to pay rent, which the rent goes up at the government, whatever approved rate. So, but that's like half of your income. And then you've got a car, which, that's a huge blessing, but, and then you've got your like daily living, right? And if like the price of groceries doubles, you're going to cut back on something else, right? Whereas an asset owner looks at that same situation and it's just like, well, the price of groceries doubled, but my asset also went up. So, at least I can kind of tap into that and stay on the same level. Yeah. And it's sad, right, to live in a world where society's kind of like slowly pulling people apart. And I don't know if this is where you get conspiracy theories, like, well, they actually are doing this for a reason to make these two separate groups, but it's just an effect of the system, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that. I mean, inflation is pervasive and nefarious, but it's just, for most politicians, I think it's the system that we're in. Yeah. So we're just trying to make the best of it.
So I guess the stewardly kind of option here is to explore the system further and look at assets that maintain their value and look at like how have they done over the last 25 years, and kind of make these like longer term calculated decisions, not like 1 year, 2 years. Well, housing prices go up in 2 years. Like, doesn't really matter, because you got a whole lifetime ahead of you to work and provide for a family or to serve in your community. And, if you're getting your money devalued over time and your costs are going up, I think even for organizations, right? Like, there's a lot of non-for-profit organizations that costs are going up every year, and those costs get passed on to the people who support, like think church, school, right?
Yep.
All of those costs get passed on. And if we have a supporting base for those organizations that doesn't have assets or their incomes aren't going up, there could be problems. So,
I mean, there are problems, arguably right now, right? But just before we end, one quick situation that's unfolding is gold. So apparently, if you believe the scuttlebutt, the banks in London, this is where the Central Gold Exchange is, are out of gold, right? And they're begging and borrowing other banks to for their gold, because they have to, people are like saying, hey, I want my gold. And they're like, well, it'll take 1 to 2 months to retrieve your bullion. It's like, well, why?
So are we back to fractional reserves? Or
Yeah, I think totally, right? There's a lot of paper gold, and now it's so. I mean, if you own gold, it could be a good thing, because the price potentially could shoot up if there's a scare. But if you own gold, do you actually own gold?
Yeah, you have to physically have it.
If you physically have it, that's one thing. If you've got gold shares or certificates of deposit for gold.
That's the other thing with all assets. I think you need to ask that question, right? Like, if you own something, what do you actually own it? What do you actually own? And when something happens, and the forces that be have to come in and fix the problem, all these experts that their ideas are concentrated in institutions where their ideas do not have to work in order to survive. All those people come in. What do you actually own at the end of the day? I think you should think about that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, you start with the Bible, know your Bible. There's a lot of, I talk a lot about history and stuff and looking back, but I mean, look at the Bible. There's tons of history. The history of the human race, human behavior, all different types of governments, societies. Like, there's tons of lessons in there. So you start there and work your way out, I think. I mean, and that's just on the practical side. I'll say practical as opposed to spiritual development. But there you go.
All right.
Okay. Any final words of wisdom, Brent?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
No more wisdom.
No more wisdom. We're out of wisdom. Okay. Thank you, folks, for sticking with us this far. And until next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.